And you got a glimpse in this song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. By the way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a unique personality in the sense, if you would have met him, you would not have recognized him as pure devotee. Definitely. Because he acted very normally. And many people could not recognize him. His own family members, his wife, his children, most of his children. He had many children. I think he has 10 children, something, I forgot. And daughter. So they couldn't understand Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a liberated soul. And that's why they did a big mistake. When he left his body, they burned his body. That's amazing. I mean to say, they knew in tradition, saints' body cannot be burned. They have to be given samadhi. But they burned his body. That only shows that they didn't understand his importance. Only Bhakti Siddhanta could really understand his importance. Not just understand, but he could see his original Sarupa. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sarupa. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's spiritual master, so-called, he was Vipin Bihari. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't take initiation for so many years. I think for many years he was uninitiated. He was doing his own bhajan. So when somebody asked him in Jagannath Puri, why don't you take initiation? You've written so many books and there's importance of Diksha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I don't find anybody who can give me initiation. So he was like that. So in the night Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and he advises him, please take initiation from Vipin Bihari. And Vipin Bihari, he was in Nityanand Parivar. So you see, there are three main people, Chaitanya, Advaitacharya and Nityanand Prabhu. All have their line, their family, isn't it? So he belonged to Nityanand group. Group is not a good word. He belonged to Nityanand Parivar, family of Nityanand. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur took his initiation from him. And then once, when he took initiation, Vipin Bihari, he put his feet on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's head to bless him. And Bhakti Siddhanta was there. I think he was just 4 years old, something, very young. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur he went out, he came and he scolded Vipin Bihari. He said, how dare you put your feet on Bhaktivinoda? Do you know who Bhaktivinoda is? And do you know who you are? You are a conditioned soul. And he's eternally liberated soul. He's a Manjari. At 4 years, he knew that. He knew that. This only shows he was sent from spiritual world to assist Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed for a son who will assist him in preaching. As we were discussing yesterday, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a writer, he wrote books, and he wanted a person who could propagate his teachings and present it to the world. It's always like that. Some person writes, another person takes and propagates. It's always like that. One person cannot do both. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that important he was. His spiritual form was as a Manjari in Krishna Leela. Exactly, I forgot the name of the Manjari. Anybody remembers? What was? I think so. Kamla Manjari. Whenever I don't have any answer, I say Kamla Manjari. But I don't know if you're sure. Yes. Okay, fine. You can check. But Siddhari Kamla Manjari. Yeah. I also remember this. I think Kamla Manjari. And in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, he was servant of Jahanava Devi. So he had two Sarupas. In Mahaprabhu's Leela and Krishna Leela. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in one of his articles that generally devotees have one Sarupa. Either in Krishna Leela or in Mahaprabhu's Leela. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says some people have both. He had both. Mostly if you have your Sarupa in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, you most likely have your Sarupa in Krishna Leela because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always pushing you in Krishna's pastime, but it doesn't go other way around. But he was that, and he didn't want to reveal his Sarupa, by the way. None of Acharyas revealed their Sarupa. They are not so proud and arrogant to say I am this. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't want to tell about him, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in his dream and he said, you should write an autobiography. So for all of the acharyas we have bibliography. Bibliography means somebody else writes.
No, biography.
Biography? What's bibliography? Bibliography is actually behind, Actually it's not, biography. And he has autobiography. And that his book is Swalikhit Jeevani. That's a Sanskrit. That's a Bengali book. Swalikhit Jeevani. He wrote. And he writes in the beginning, actually I don't want to write, but Mahaprabhu has commanded me, so I have to write. And he's commanded me to reveal my Sarupa, so I'm doing that. But because he is humble, as all our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas are, so what he does is, he writes because it's an order and he can't defy it. But half of the book he dedicates to write his pastimes, let's say, his life history, when he was young and when he was in family life. And he makes it sure to write that he was complete nonsense at that time. That's his humbleness. And he reveals all his defects. He says he was, so when he was young, he was very uncontrolled. He used to eat a lot of sweets. He couldn't control his tongue. He used to eat fish. What about that? Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Paramahamsa, liberated soul, he's eating non-veg. Bengalis eat non-veg, by the way. For Bengalis, fish is not an animal, it's a fruit. They call fish as Ganga Phal, a fruit of Ganges. So for them, they're not eating non-veg, they're still vegetarian, eating fish. It's their speculation, but it's like that. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, out of all acharya, none of acharyas, they ate fish. Narottam Das Thakur, of course they are acharyas, And eating meat is strictly prohibited. In fact, Narottam Das Thakur, when he came to Bengal, he was sent by Jiva Goswami from Vrindavan. When he finished his studies to Bengal, Jiva Goswami wrote a letter to Narottam Das Thakur, cautioning him, please never eat fish, never associate with non-devotees, and never marry. To Narottam Das Thakur, you can't imagine Narottam Das Thakur associating with non-devotees. It's crazy. Narottam Das Thakur, whose body melted, he didn't even disappear. He melted into milk in Padma river. He came back to life. He was dead at one point. They were about to burn him. His disciples requested, please come back. We can't stay without you. And some people were actually offending him. Oh, see this Narottam Das Thakur, he died anyway, this is destiny, nonsense person. He died of fever and this blah blah. So they requested, please come back, otherwise these people will go to hell. Narottam Das Thakur sat up. He was dead. He sat up and he said, okay, to save these souls I have come back to life. And then they like surrendered and they asked for... See, this kind of person, but still Jiva Goswami writes to him, please don't do all these things. Why? Because in spite of the fact you might be super liberated person, but this is welcome to material world. This is a word of illusion. Nobody is exempt from falling down. Even Rupa Goswami is not exempt. Prabhupada writes in one of his letters to his disciple, Rupa Goswami somehow escaped from this material world. You can imagine if you say for him he escaped, there's no chance for us. What the hell we are doing here? If he escaped, he out of all he, who is our Sampradaya Acharya, who never slept under one tree, he used to change tree daily in the fear that he'll become attached to the tree. Who never wore any clothes, very minimal, who never ate anything. They were so strict with themselves. So that's, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions about himself, by the way, all these things, his defects. Just to show, it's a pastime actually. Bhaktisiddhanta explained why he's doing that. So, and he did it really, it's not like he was feigning, he's eating fish, but internally he's thinking, I'm a liberated soul, but I have to eat fish to teach people something. No. It was Krishna planned like that. So he was eating sweets, he was eating fish. Most of the time when he was young, his stomach was upset because he used to go to parties and eat too much in the night. And the next day he was getting headaches and stomach aches. And then he had a wife. I think his wife died and he married again. And then he had kids, many kids, 10 kids. And he was doing a job, normal job. Many years he didn't have a job. His grandfather died. His mother, she died. His grandfather was special. His grandfather was, let's say, pure devotee of Durga, like that. So when he was dying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur met him. Actually, that time his name was not Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His name was, what was his name? Kedarnath Dutt. Kedarnath Dutt. His caste was Dutt. Kedarnath. So he went, actually his name was Kedarnath Dutt, but his grandfather, his mother, they used to call him Bhalu. You know Bhalu? Bear. Because he was very fat and he had a lot of hairs on his body. Lot of hairs. In fact, whole village used to call him Bhalu. It's full of hairs. In fact, it is said in scriptures, there's a science called as physiognomy. Physiognomy, science of body, posture and appearance. So it is said any male who has more hairs, he is more mature and more reliable, let's say, faithful. A male who doesn't have hairs on his body, the less the hairs, the less faithful you are. And the less mature you are. It's like that. You can check for yourself. It's for males, it's for not females. So he has a lot of hairs. And you see many people have hairs on their ears. You see all these cartoons. What's that? Harry Potter? I didn't see, but I saw a photo and there was one wise Oz. And generally they have hairs, no? Big hairs on the ears. Wise person. So that's the symptom of, so that's the appearance. That's how you know he's a wise man. If you have hairs on your ears. That's a good sign. So anyway, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was like that, what to do? And he mentioned all these things. And he said, one more very important thing, he said, I never liked devotees. Never. Because I thought these are complete nonsense, sentimental people. They're just playing kirtans, no philosophy. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a book, actually wrote some articles on Mayavad. He was impersonalist. Was pakka impersonalist. He was reading philosophy and he was convinced ultimate reality is impersonal and there's no Krishna, nothing, and these are all nonsense. You see such kind of person. Now Bhaktisiddhanta writes an article and he says, why on earth he is behaving like that? Or why on earth Krishna made him like that? Because he is eternally perfect. But then what's happening? So there's a concept in Bhakti Sandarbha which is called as Murchit Kashaya. If you might not have heard, definitely, even in your dreams. People don't know about this. But it's mentioned by Acharyas, Murchit Kashaya. That means sometimes eternally liberated souls, they appear in this world, but somehow Krishna actually covers their consciousness. Personally, not by illusion. Our it's covered by illusion and sinful actions. But Krishna covers this consciousness. Murchit means unconscious. For some time, their spiritual entity is unconscious, even to them. Just like in Mahaprabhu's Leela, before Nimai became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was Nimai Pandit. He didn't reveal his identity. You see all these eternal associates of Mahaprabhu, they were meeting him. Kolavecha, Sridhar, Shivas Thakur, they were all meeting him. But they couldn't recognize he is God. In fact, they were criticizing Nimai Pandit. See, he's such a big philosopher, he's a scholar, and he thinks he's so big person, and what he doesn't do, he's not a Vaishnava. And so whenever they used to meet Nimai Pandit, they used to tell Nimai, you should worship Krishna, otherwise you go to hell. They were talking like that, and Nimai used to say, well, you know what, one day you will worship me. And they used to say, no, I used to close their ears and go, but they didn't know that they'll be worshipping Lord Chaitanya. So, what was happening? They are liberated souls, but what was happening? The point is, they were unconscious. They were in this stage of Murchit Kashaya. Narad Muni, he was Murchit Kashaya. He was son of maid servant. He had no realization. He did tapas. He got realization. What's happening if he's eternally liberated? They are Murchit Kashaya. So Bhaktisiddhanta says he was like that, and Krishna made it that purposefully to actually enthuse and other people, normal people, so that they can have some confidence. Okay, we can also become perfect. You see, if such a normal person, he can practice and he can become perfect, then we can also. Because if all acharyas are superman, superhuman beings right from the beginning, then everybody will think this process is not for me. You see the point? So Bhaktisiddhanta said, that's why sometimes Krishna does like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakura writes all these things, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakura writes this. He met his grandfather when he was dying. His grandfather predicted, because he was a pure devotee of Durga, and he predicted while dying that you will suddenly become a Vaishnava, and the greatest of all devotees, of all Vaishnavas, and you will lead and write many books and guide all the Vaishnavas down the history. He blessed him. He said this is a prediction. So Bhaktivinoda Thakura heard that, but he didn't really believe it, because he said, come on, the last thing I'm going to do is become a Vaishnava. And I am educated. He was a philosopher. Bhaktivinoda Thakura was a philosopher. He was trained in English, by the way. You see, at that time, learning English in India, it's like 100 years back, 1850s, 60s, something like that, 1830s something. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakura was born, I think, 1834 something. And by 1850 or 55, he's a young man. So he read English. At that time, reading English was a big thing. Even 50 years back. In 50 years back, anybody who knew English, like, he's God. Even now, actually. Even now, if you go to India, people can't speak English. Except these people who are working in these call centers. But they also speak English in a funny way. You can recognize he's an Indian speaking English. Well, you can know that. That's another thing. But that time English, and he was a lawyer. That's another thing, big thing. And then he became judge. There was nobody in history who became judge in British Empire. You can become a lawyer, but you can't become judge. It's impossible. But they made Bhaktivinoda Thakur judge. They were forced to, because he was supercomputer. You know why? Because the cases he used to take in the court, and so other British judges, they used to take around a month or so to solve one case. He used to solve the same case in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and people were astounded. What is happening with this guy? He's having computer in his mind or what? And perfect judgment. They were very impressed. So they gave. He was the only magistrate in British Empire, and so people were impressed by him, and so that's why, because he knew English, he was a lawyer. He read all this philosophy, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, Western philosophers. And most of your Western philosophers are impersonalist, isn't it? The conclusion is impersonalism. So he said, okay, fine. So, by the way, he was a great writer. You know how many books he wrote? Anybody can guess? More than 200. More than 200 books. The first book he wrote at the age of 13 or 14 something in English. And then he was writing. And you know why? You can't write 200 books. If you're a writer, you know. I am a writer. I've written 8 books in 20 years. And he wrote 200 books. If you're a writer, and those books are not story books, bedtime stories that you can just see the sky and imagine and write complete nonsense and whatever you want. It's not Harry Potter. This is stuff what he was writing. Philosophy, for example, he wrote a book. What's that? Tattva Vichar and Viveka Tattva. These books, if you read, it's full of philosophy. It's very difficult. Jaiv Dharm, you all know his main book. When he was writing that book, he said, I used to get headaches. And he used to walk 2 hours back and forth, thinking what to write. Because they are perfect books. And to write 200 books, well, you can't sleep. Because he was a judge. He had to spend 8 hours in the court. He used to come back, he has a family, 10 kids, 1 wife. He used to be with them. He has to meet people. They're writing letters. And he has to do his homework of his court. And then he has to write a book. So his schedule was, he was the most disciplined man ever. He was so disciplined that people used to match their watch by his actions. So for example, he'll take breakfast at 8:39. He'll go out of his house to this office at 9:14. I'm just giving random examples. So then people who used to set their watches, they used to wait. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur comes out, 9:14. That's 9:14, that's all. He was super disciplined. And by the power of discipline, he could conquer sleep and eating. He could conquer that. That's the only key. Discipline is the key to conquer sleep and eating. There's no other way. You can't suppress it. You keep on fighting whole life, nothing is going to happen. So, what his schedule was? His schedule was, he used to get up. Anyway, I'll not start with get up. I'll start with, because he didn't sleep only. So he used to take breakfast around 8 o'clock. Yeah. And what was breakfast? 2 chapatis, half cup of milk, that's all. And then he used to go to his court and then come back in the afternoon. Then he used to I think take 20 minutes rest something, and then he used to answer letters in the evening, and then he used to spend little time with his family, and then in the night 8 o'clock he used to take some little food again, and then he used to before that he used to meet some people, whoever wants to meet. He was a judge, some people are coming to meet, and then at 9 o'clock he used to sit and start his work. And he used to write some books in the night, and then whole night he's chanting. He's not sleeping. And then in the morning again he's chanting, and then morning he's doing some of his work, and then again. So when he's sleeping, so he's sleeping mostly on the way when he's going from his house to the court. Because Britishers, they started a train for him. You can imagine. Only for him. Starting from his house in Godrum Dweep to his court in Krishna Nagar. It's like 45 minutes journey. 45 minutes to 1 hour. So special train for him. There's nobody so fortunate and nobody so honored by British Empire. Especially when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not that handsome also. He was not handsome. Bhaktisiddhanta was a real handsome person. Like he was a person, if you see him, you'll just bow down. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not like that. But he was intelligent, he was faithful. British Empire, they started a train. And on the way, he used to sleep. So he didn't waste time. Go and come, he used to sleep. So he's practically sleeping 1.5 hours, 2 hours daily, that's all. And that too, he's saying, I'm wasting my time in his songs. You see the point, when they write in their books, This song, Gopinath Mamane Vidana Suno, you have sung this? Vishai Gopinath Mamane Vidana Suno, Vishai Durjana, I am useless soul, I am Durjan, I am always immersed in sense gratification. Why they are saying this? Because they are sleeping 1 hour and they are thinking I am doing sense gratification. Their whole dimension of sense gratification is different. For them, sleeping 1 hour is sense gratification. For them, having a slight sleep while chanting is sense gratification. How can I sleep while chanting holy names? It's complete nonsense. Our definition of sense gratification is very different. Our definition is no illicit sex. Our definition is very gross. And we think now we are not doing any sense gratification, but we are fully immersed in the waves of sense gratification. That's how it goes. So, the point is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's schedule was like that, and he was right till his end. He was like that. See, the point is, if you do 3 days like him, you will crash for another week. Hare Krishna. You will crash for a week, that's all. You can't do. Srila Prabhupada also was sleeping for 2 hours, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada was like that. And by their spiritual potency, they could conquer sleep and eating. By discipline. That's very important. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was super disciplined. That was his quality. And also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he switched from impersonalism to Vaishnavism. And how it happened was, he saw one devotee, I think in Navadip, he met a Babaji. I think either he met Jagannath Babaji or somebody. And they told him to write something on Lord Chaitanya. He was a philosopher. So he said, let's write. But the problem was, there was no book on Chaitanya. Chaitanya Charitamrita book was lost. Jagannath Babaji had a book, I told yesterday. And pretty much others were lost and very confused. Verses were added in between. They were Bengali. They were in Bengali, but they were all tampered, let's say. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, okay, if I want to know about Lord Chaitanya, because this devotee whom Bhaktivinoda Thakur met, he said, you don't know, but Lord Chaitanya is not just a sentimental person. He has the greatest philosophy. So he said, okay, let's check it out. So he tried to find a copy. There was no copy. So he got all the copies and he read them and he was convinced. And then he wrote an article that I was such a fool that I couldn't realize that Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is a summum bonum of all the philosophy of all the sampradayas that have ever existed on this planet. And he wrote an article showing how Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is a summum bonum of all the philosophies of all sampradaya. In fact, in such a small article, he gave a comparative analysis of all Vaishnava sampradayas, by the way. So he says, for example, he says that Madhvacharya, his philosophy is like a seed, because it's only dealing with refutation of Mayavad, more of his philosophy. And then Ramanacharya's philosophy is blossoming of that seed, because Ramanacharya is dealing with the concept of surrender, prapatti. So it blossoms, the seed of devotion blossoms. And then Nimbarkacharya's philosophy, Vallabhacharya's philosophy is like flowers on those seeds. So there's a seed and then there's plant and then flowers bloom. That's Vallabhacharya's philosophy. And Nimbarkacharya's philosophies, those flower then blossoms, because he talks about Parakiya Ras and Radha and Krishna. And Mahaprabhu's philosophies, then there is fragrance from the flower all over the area. And it just spreads. That's how he explains. So he says, actually all these Vaishnavacharyas, they are not different philosophies, but they are different phases of the same philosophy. That's how he understands this. An evolution of the same principle through various phases in different sampradaya, leading to the highest conception of philosophy, that is transcendental mellows of love of God. That's how he saw it. In fact, he added Christianity and Islam in that too. He said, he added that. He said Christ was in, I think Christ was in Dasir, Christ was in Dasiras, Almighty Father, and Muhammad, he was in Sakhiras. If you read Quran properly, he was friend of Allah. So he compares like that. I think for Moses also he says something. And then, he says like that. And then he comes to Vaishnava Parampara. So he says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is at the end of all philosophies. You see the point how he changes into Vaishnavism? He switches to Vaishnavism. And he's fully convinced, and then he vows, I will show how Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is the best. And then he starts writing all devotional books. Then he shifts to Jagannath Puri, by the way. His posting is shifted from Calcutta to Jagannath Puri. And he says in his book, articles, that Lord Jagannath called me purposefully here. Because at that time, you will be shocked to hear. You've gone to Jagannath Puri, anybody of you? You've gone? You visited, okay. Of course, you didn't visit, couldn't go inside, of course, that's true. But if you go inside, anyway, there's Jagannath Baldev Subhadra inside, of course. So if you go inside, there's an altar. And at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakura, what happened was, they were worshipping a dog with Jagannathji. They installed a dog also. They were like crazy people, and like Jagannath Baldev Subhadra and a dog. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakura says, what the hell is going on? They're crazy. So those pandas, they said, this dog is incarnation of Lord Jagannath, so we are worshipping him. India, anything can happen, by the way. India is such a place. Anything at any time can happen. Anybody can become God, anybody can become dog. India is like that. And people don't mind it. So they were worshipping dog, and there were no lectures, no kathas, and all these pandas, they were like all prasad which is offered to Jagannath. Jagannath, he's offered like 50 times something in the day. Some I don't know exact, but so many times. All the time he's eating. It's famous for Jagannath. He's like super hungry God. I forgot the name. They say there are 3 deities. Udupi, you know Udupi? Anybody gone Udupi? And then Balaji, Tirupati Balaji, and then Jagannath. So it is said for Udupi is Annabhram. That means he gives food, distributes food in Udupi, Karnataka. For Tirupati Balaji, it is said he is Nadabhram. He likes music and dance. And for Jagannath, it is said he is Darubhram. Daru means wood. He's God in form of wood. But the point is, he's so hungry, he's called as hungry God, that he can't even sleep in night because of hunger. So Jagannath temple, it doesn't close at 8:30 or 9. They have no time. They might close temple at 1 o'clock, then wake him up at 2 o'clock, because he's hungry, he can't sleep. So they have to offer him food again and again. Let's go like that. He's like that. Because there's a pastime behind it, but that's another thing. But his whole aim is to provide Mahaprasad to everybody. That's why he purposefully does this hunger. He develops that. So what was happening is, his pandas, they were not distributing prasad. They were taking all prasad to their home. And they were doing bali, sacrifice of animal, in the temple premise. It was a mad stuff going on. Bhaktivinoda Thakura said, Krishna brought me here because of this. He came and he was a magistrate. So both things. A super advanced Vaishnava, everybody knows, and a magistrate, everybody knows. He had full power. He had the power of pen and the sword. Both. Anybody in history who has these 2 power, you can't defeat them. Either people had sword or people had pen. But any civilization, any kingdom who flourished, they had both. Isn't it? Pen and sword. He had both in one person. That's very rare. Either they were kings who had sword and then they had ministers who had pen. And they worked together. Isn't it? Brahmana and Kshatriyas. He's both Brahman, Kshatriya in one person. Perfect Brahmana, perfect Kshatriya. So he forced Jagannath temple. He made a rule. And he got his police constables and threw that dog out first of all. And then he told Pandas that they will not be allowed to take prasadam. And then he started philosophical discussions in the evening. He made special places around Jagannath temple. There's the compound and different compounds. He made it necessary that all scholars will come, they will give lectures. One here, one there, people can attend. He himself used to go and have philosophical discussions. So he revived that culture there, Jagannath Puri. But with the downside that people started hating him. If you do such kind of things, and if you go to Jagannath Puri and everybody is doing something and you flip everything, people really became messed up with him. So they became envious. They became so envious that when he used to give lecture, people like normal people, they didn't come because they were saying what he's doing, he's destroying a culture, tradition, whatever, And then Bhakti Siddhanta, he also came there, Jagannath Puri. Bhaktivinoda Thakur called him. Okay, come here. You stay here with me. And you help me in writing books and editing. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur taught Bhakti Siddhanta editing his books. He was editing his books. But then because people were envious, first of all, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is doing such kind of things. And second of all, Bhakti Siddhanta, he also started doing funny things. He stood outside the temple. Anybody used to come, he used to hold a scholar and he used to say, you leave Mayavad. You understand Mayavad, you leave impersonalism. You have to follow pure devotion. This is not a wooden statue, this is God. He was doing that because practically at that time, Jagannath Puri had this, Shankaracharya had a great hold on that. Even today. Today, if you go to Jagannath Puri, we have ISKCON, and then you have Haridas Thakur Samadhi, and behind that there is a mutt, Govardhan Mutt, Shankaracharya. So pretty much mostly people are influenced by Shankara's philosophy. And they are all impersonalist. So he used to hold and he used to say, and then people, of course if you hold anybody like that, people used to push him back. And they say, you complete nonsense, why you're blocking my way and this and that. And then people said, he's son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and they said, both of them are gone crazy. But the point is, you see the point, acharyas are like that. A self-realized soul, he can't tolerate anything which destroys a true conception of God. He can't. It's impossible. They can't do that. Just like this Christ, he went to Jerusalem and he destroyed all this. You know that, no? He destroyed all these people who were like taking money to enter the temple, and then they were selling chickens. So he just freed all the birds and destroyed all the temples. And he said, "You nonsense people, you are destroying the sanctity of this place," and blah 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 and this. So these people were like that. Why? Because they loved Krishna. If you love him, he can't tolerate anything which is said against him or against his philosophy. So he did like that. So what happened was, there was a sect, a big sect of Vaishnavism at that time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jagannath Puri. And that was called, even today they are there, Nitaya Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. I don't know, you don't know that, but they sing there. So these people were there. These were started by Radha Raman Goswami something. Yeah, Raman. Yeah, Goswami. So that person, he was chanting, he was giving this mantra in initiation. Nitaya Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. So his house was here and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house is here. You see, it's like adjacent. So Haridas Thakur Samadhi and his house. So he was doing this. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, actually he used to attend Bhaktivinoda Thakur's lecture. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked him, why are you giving this speculated mantra? It's not there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's not there in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Mahaprabhu never did it. So he said, well, in my dreams I got it. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur argued. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, well, he couldn't say anything. Bhakti Siddhanta, you know him. And he said, this Radharaman, he's gone crazy. He's destroying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So what he used to do is, so whenever they used to do kirtans, he used to bring dustbin and bang it outside. So that people cannot hear their kirtans. And then afterwards he asked his disciples to do that. So whenever they are coming in Harinam, they used to bang dustbin so that he didn't want to hear this complete nonsense. And by that he showed people that these people are crazy. But they were very powerful actually. They had a lot of hold. Bhaktisiddhanta is just a newcomer. So they plotted to murder. This happens in India, you know. Maybe in America, and America doesn't go so far, but in India, if you lose argument, the next step is kill him. That's all. No arguments. That's finish. Argument over. Hence proved. So they thought, okay, we'll kill Bhaktisiddhanta and then we'll kill Bhaktivinoda Thakur and it's done. Just problem is solved. But killing Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a big thing. He's a magistrate. They can't touch him. They dare touch him. They'll be finished. Bhaktisiddhanta they could do. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur realized this, that they have become really messed up situation, chaotic situation. He asked Bhaktisiddhanta to leave Jagannath Puri, go back to Mayapur. He said, go back, you stay there. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was making Yoga Peeth, Temple of Lord Chaitanya's birthplace. So he said, you go and manage that place. Anyway, I need a manager. And you like to chant, you go there and chant first. You take a vow and chant. So he went to Mayapur. Near Mayapur there is an island, Rudrapur. It's just right in front of ISKCON, that island. So he went there and he took a vow to chant, I think 9 crore holy names, which took him around some 8-9 years. He was chanting 24 hours. He was not sleeping. He was chanting. And then, but at the same time he was managing the temple. He was not in the mood of Babaji. He totally understood, what's that? Jivana hoile prachara hetu. What's that exactly? He said the life of bhajan is preaching. He always said that. And he never stopped it. Even when he was chanting 3 lakh holy names a day. 3 lakhs? Yeah, 1 lakh. Yeah, 3 lakh. 3 lakh, no, Haridas Thakur is 3 lakh holy names? Yeah, 3 lakh. So 3 lakh holy names one day he's chanting and he's managing the temple. I don't know how he's doing, but. And he's getting reports, he's managing. There was a pujari, he used to tell, do this. And people used to come, he used to give lecture also. In Rudhpur, people used to come and hear him. He used to give lecture, he used to read, he used to manage temple and to chant 3 lakh. 3 lakh holy names means 190 rounds approximately. 190 rounds, 192 rounds per day. This is superhuman. You can't do that. You can't do that without Krishna Shakti. But he was doing. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur there, then things became peaceful because Bhaktisiddhanta was a person who was creating problem. Like if you're standing on the road and doing such kind of stuff, you know what happens. Banging the dustbin. And so things became little peaceful. But at the same time, it was not so peaceful because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was bringing so much change in Jagannath Puri temple. So as they thought they'll kill Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktisiddhanta is out of picture. They thought, okay, let's kill Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he's a mess now. He's a pain in the eyes. So what they did was, there was a person. He was very rich. He hired some brahmanas, some tantric, and they were supposed to do yagya. And when that yagya finishes, the idea was the yagya finishes and Bhaktivinoda Thakur will die because of some mantras or something like that. So and these people were very powerful tantrics. So they were doing yagya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur came to know they are doing yagya, and he said, well, I am in the shelter of Krishna. So when yagya finished, what happened was that person died. He is like, he's finished. So, and then you know this pastime of 𝗲𝗂𝗃. You know this, no? 𝗲𝗂𝗃. That person, the tantric who was saying, I am God. You know this, it's famous. Yeah, it's big, it's a drama also. So he said, I am a God, and Bhaktivinoda Thakura defeated him and then took him in the jail. That pastime, you know, so you pretty much know that. Oh yeah, this 𝗲𝗂𝗃, he was a famous God. He used to call himself Vishnu. And he used to do Ras Leela, but he had a lot of powers actually. You see, to get powers, you need not be devotee and not even self-control. You can get by some kind of mantras. It's possible. I have done that, so it's not a big thing. Before Krishna Consciousness, I was a tantric, so I know how it goes. I got powers. I used to levitate from the ground, and I did it, but then I got bored of it. Like, then now what? You're above ground, now what? What's happening? So I left everything. But it's pretty scary also, because tantrics, you are in the night, you're doing something, and then it's pretty scary. So I left it. But this 𝗲𝗂𝗃, he was a tantric, and many years he got these powers, extraordinary powers. And he was fooling people that he's God, as usual in India, how it happens. So Britishers were afraid of him, because he was getting people, popularity. So Britishers sought Bhaktivinoda Thakur's help. And they said, see, you should stop him. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, well, I don't want to help you, but the fact he's claiming himself God, that's why I want to stop him. Because nobody's God. So he went and they had a fight and he took constables and he arrested him. And then there was a court case and this. So that yogi, he said, I'll kill all of your kids, by his power. But one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's friend, he was Britisher. He read a book that these yogis keep their power in the hairs. So he went and cut his hairs. And it's true, by the way. It's true. The powers of all these tantrics, they are in the hair. So he cut his hair and his powers were lost. He does that, like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he spent his life. At the end of his life, he got arthritis. Arthritis, you know arthritis, no? He couldn't really walk. That was a pastime, by the way, but he feigned he got arthritis. And on the top of it, he left Mayapur and he went to Calcutta. Now that's interesting. He made a home in 𝗲𝗪𝗀, Mayapur, for bhajan. Whole life, he spent his life in 𝗲𝗪𝗀, in Mayapur, chanting. So anybody has visited his house? You went Mayapur, Jagannath, Mayapur, his house, 𝗲𝗪𝗀. You've seen his room is like so thick walls. It's such thick. He specially built his house, thick walls, because in the night he used to shout. He didn't used to chant slowly. He used to shout, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He was uncontrolled. What can he do? He was shouting in separation from Krishna, and so he used to seal himself in that big walls so that people don't get disturbed. In villages, if you shout, it will go up like 1 kilometer far. It's like villages, it happens like that, if anybody has lived in village. So he shut himself. But so in the end, he did funny thing. He went to Calcutta. People come to holy place to leave their body. He left the holy place to leave his body. Went to Calcutta. And he made a bhavan in Calcutta, a house for himself. He sat in Calcutta and made a house under his supervision. That's what he did. And that's why Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, he was totally going mad. He said, what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is doing? He's become old. He should stay here and do bhajan in Navadvip. He has been doing. Now he goes to Calcutta. He's specially making his house. He's sitting there. All laborers are working. He's taking full interest in making his house in Calcutta. And he's going to shift there. Gaur-Kishore Babaji said he's crazy. He thought like that. Something weird. And that's why I told you yesterday, he gave a letter to Bhaktisiddhanta to give him. That you are in the world of illusion. What you are doing? Come back. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote back to Gaur-Kishore Babaji, wherever I am, there is Vaikuntha. I can never be in illusion. And he signed, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all blessings unto you. He blessed Gaur-Kishore Babaji. He was a different person. So Bhaktisiddhanta said why he went to Calcutta. He explained actually. Because he thought that he is not fit to leave body in holy place. He is not fit to leave his body in such a sanctified place. He is not fit. He is not so fortunate to die in holy dham. You have to have fortune to die in holy dham also. It doesn't come itself. I have seen many devotees, not exactly our sampradaya, but many devotees who go to Vrindavan to leave their body. But at the end moment, something happens, and the kids come. They take him back to Delhi in the hospital. A heart attack, unconscious, and they take him back to a hospital, and in hospital he dies. You can't die in holy dham like that. So but he was humble enough. He went to Calcutta. He said, I am not qualified. And also, Bhaktisiddhanta said one more thing. He said he also wanted to show that wherever you're doing pure devotion, that automatically becomes holy dham. He wanted to show that holy name has such a power. And many of Babajis do like that at the end. Just like Bamsiya's Babaji, at the end of his, right at the end, whole life he spent in Mayapur and Vrindavan, Bamsiya's Babaji. By the end, he went back to his home. He went back to his home. You see the point. You go to a home at the end, and people were thinking, what happened? He's fallen. Suddenly he went back to his home. If you go to a home, after spending your whole life in dham, what people will think? Now his again attachment has come. Went back to his home in Bangladesh, and he went to his home, and he sat chanting, and he took dead fish, and he spread all around his hut, and cigarettes. So that when people will come, they will think he's eating fish, he's smoking cigarettes, he's back home, he's fallen. So he did that. Why? Because he said that, you see, when I'm dying, when I'm leaving my body, at the end of my time, I don't want people to actually disturb me. And also, actually that's a very superficial reason. The main thing was, he said, I don't want people to say that I am a great devotee. I want people to say that this person was complete nonsense and rascal. Vamsidas Babaji, you can read about him. These devotees were like that, they were free of any tinge of prestige and pride. It is not just saying I am humble. They did it. They did some things, people criticized them. They did it. And that's very difficult. You can say that's okay. But you do something by which everybody criticizes you and they think you're a rascal. How do you do that? You're really playing with your name and fame and prestige. You're destroying it by your own hands. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. He went to Calcutta because he said, well, yeah, I'll just go there. And at the end, what happened was, he became almost invalid, was doing bhajan. But at that very time, local Brahmanas, they did a meeting and they said, okay, now this is right time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is invalid. So we'll hold a big meeting, and that meeting was held in one of the village which was called as Bhagnapada. It's still there, that place. And the meeting was held in this village, Bhagnapada, it's near Calcutta. And they said, okay, let's do the meeting, let's call all scholars and let's establish that Brahmanism is higher than Vaishnavism. Karma Kanda is a real philosophy. Devotional philosophy is not correct. Let's establish and defeat Lord Chaitanya's movement. And we'll invite Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he'll not be able to come. So anyway, they'll get defeated. We'll establish in front of public and we'll win, and we'll again take everything in our control. So they planned like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur came to know, and he was pretty sad. He said, you know what, I can't go. I can't defend Lord Chaitanya's movement. Is there somebody who can defend? And Bhaktisanta said, I'll go. He was young at that time. Not so young, but young. So he said, I'll go. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Bhakti Thakur knew his caliber. Bhakti Siddhanta was such a caliber. if today you go to Calcutta, there's a university, Calcutta University. You've gone? Anybody? Library. If you go to the library. The library is very big. A 3 floors library. All full of books. All full of books. I mean to say, if you go to MIT, I was in Boston, I went to MIT. And Harvard library I went. It's like big library, all books. He sat in that library and read all the books. he just ate all the books. I don't know. And he remembered everything. His memory was super memory. Super duper memory. He read all books. He used to take one book, finish, another book, finish, another book, finish. And the librarian used to think, what's happening to him? He used to borrow. He read all the books. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur knew his caliber. He said, okay, you go. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he prepared a book, a thesis, let's say. And the name was Brahmana or Vaishnava. Brahmana versus Vaishnavism. And he prepared it, and they didn't expect Bhaktisiddhanta to come. Because at that time Bhaktisiddhanta was not Bhaktisiddhanta, he was actually Vimal Prasad. His real name is Vimal Prasad. Can you close this? So he suddenly turned up. And all these scholars, they were thinking what this boy will do. It's like a new boy. Why Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't come? They were happy. But then what happened was, Bhaktisiddhanta, he started giving lecture, and he spoke. First he praised the Brahmanas, and he quoted all shlokas, and they are so high, they are so this, and then he started cutting them. That Brahmana praised, but those are true Brahmanas. And then he said, who are false Brahmanas? And all of those were sitting, they were started falling to be in category of false Brahmanas. And that's how he established. But the true Brahmana is real Vaishnava. And so he established that Vaishnavism is actually even superior than Brahmanism. It's a very good book. It's in Bengali, Brahmana. It's not in English. But if you learn Bengali and read, it's very nice. Probably you can come to me, I can teach you Bengali. And then you can learn that. So read that. It's a beautiful book. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so proud of him. Bhaktivinoda Thakur blessed him for this. And he said, after me, you are the person who is going to propagate my legacy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had another son, Lalit Prasad. He had many sons, but 2 sons were prominent. Bhaktisiddhanta, Vimal Prasad and Lalit Prasad. So Vimal Prasad became Bhaktisiddhanta, who carried on legacy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Lalit Prasad, he actually got deviated. He went to Vrindavan and he got all these Sahajyas, concepts and all these things. Bhaktivinoda Thakur told Bhaktisiddhanta, Lalit Prasad will be another Roop Kaviraj. Roop Kaviraj was another person at the time of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was having deviated conceptions, and he was also defeated by the daughter of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Hemlata Thakurani, at that time. So he said he'll be another Roop Kaviraj. And Roop Kaviraj has written a big book. So I've read full book. It's a big book. It's a thick book. If you read that, you'll be convinced of Apasampradaya. He was a very big scholar. But Hemlata Thakurani, she was a female and she defeated him. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Lalit Prasad is going to become like that. He's going to destroy my teachings. And he told Bhaktisiddhanta. And so they got split. So they didn't really like each other, Lalit Prasad, because of course. So Lalit Prasad went to Vrindavan. Bhaktisiddhanta was in Mayapur. And Bhaktisiddhanta said to Lalit Prasad, see, you are my brother. And you saw my father as Abba. You know Abba? In Hindi it means father. You saw Bhaktivinoda Thakur as your father. But I saw him as a liberated soul. And that's the difference between you and me. And that is why you are deviated and I am not deviated. You see the point? So that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur really didn't die. You don't use this term die for great saints. He disappeared. But at the same time he said, Vaishnavas do not die for they live in their words. Something like this. Anybody remembers?
They live to spread the holy name.
Yeah, they live to spread the holy name. Yeah, that famous.
He reasons ill who say.
Yeah. He reasons ill who say Vaishnavas die. So Vaishnavas don't die. In the sense, of course they disappear, but in another sense, that they're still alive in their books and in personality. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was alive in form of Bhakti Siddhanta and his books. Or Bhakti Siddhanta is still alive in the form of Prabhupada. And that's parampara. So ultimately Krishna is there in all of them and all the thread, So that's how he left Bhakti Siddhanta in this world to continue his mission. And we like to compare Bhaktivinoda Thakur as a bow. Bhakti Siddhanta as an arrow. And Srila Prabhupada, the power in that arrow. The speed and the power with which it goes. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur laid a foundation, books, he did everything in English and everything prepared. Bhakti Siddhanta comes, he's a bow. He took those books and spread it in India. He established a system for spreading those books. An institution. He brought this concept of institution. Before Bhaktivinoda Thakur, no concept of institution. There were Babajis. He brought this concept of sannyas and institution. And then Prabhupada comes and he is the power and the speed in the arrow. And by the speed and power within 10 years, he just engulfs all the world. And that's why we have all these three, Bhaktivedanta, Bhakti Siddhanta and Bhaktivinoda. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.